Welcome to the B2B Word of Mouth Marketing Podcast. We're here to help you grow your business with the one form of marketing that really works.
I'm Bill Bice, and we're here because we believe inside every small business is a big business.
Aaron, it's good to be back with you. I love it when you're on the podcast.
So do I. And it's been a while since I've gotten to see you face to face, but it's been a while since I've seen anyone face to face. This is as close as we're getting for a while.
Living on Zoom like everybody else.
That's right. Yeah. My very, very active digital presence, I should say. Well,
and it's what everybody's doing right now, right? And it's really what's driving the theme of what we're going to talk about. So it's this really interesting quandary, because on the one hand, being in quarantine, it's like time has just stopped. And, April was not 30 days, it was 300 days. I mean, that's what it feels like. But because of the way that this is accelerating the trends, something else really interesting is going on, which is, we're all living the equivalent of a decade right now in 1 year in terms of how it affects us in business.
Yeah, I mean, the responses that we've seen in terms of our personal clients having to adapt, and then just the world at large and how they're having to adapt to the situation, it speaks to that juxtaposition perfectly. For me personally, time has kind of gone at a standstill, but at the same time, everything else is sped up. And I see a lot of our clients trying to really move quickly to adapt to the times, and through some really specific ways.
Yeah, I mean, necessity is the mother of invention. It is forcing. I mean, the way that I look at it is, whatever you were looking at the trends in your business, where we were going to be 10 years from now, well, that's where we're going to be on the other side of this crisis. It's where we're going to be right now. And we're seeing that with the adoption of digital technology, with the move online. I think one of the huge factors is that we've all become accustomed to just in the last few weeks of whatever it is we want, it's now going to be delivered to us when we want it, and that's going to have long-term effects. So we're learning that on the consumer side, but it's really going to affect our expectations on the B2B side. So how are you going to change your business so that whatever product or service you provide is now delivered to your clients the moment they want it, when they want it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember in late 2019 having the conversation with many of my clients that, down the line, they were interested in implementing e-commerce to their website, but it was a long-term plan. They weren't quite ready to commit to it. And now the conversation has completely changed, and it's how quickly can we implement e-commerce onto our site? And that comes with its own set of processes, right? I mean, in terms of implementing it from a technical standpoint, we're equipped to do so, but businesses are having to think about, okay, how do I take my products and services and create an inventory for them in order for them to be put online? What do I need to do to create product categories for my website? How do I create a unified and cohesive experience for my consumers to take whatever services that were previously being rendered in person and putting them online? So strategically, we're really working with a lot of our clients to talk through just that.
Yeah, and we're seeing so many innovations in the B2C space, which I think are really interesting to look at, because they color what's going to happen in B2B. So we have long experience in B2C. We have thousands of spas that we work with around the country from work that we have long done. And so as a great example of that, hair colorists are now custom mixing the blends for their clients, dropping it off at their doorstep, and then getting on Zoom and walking them through how to do it themselves.
Absolutely, which I think is really innovative. And for me personally, in our household, from a B2C standpoint, I am now a subscriber of Wink Wines. I get them delivered to my house monthly. Talk about necessities in the time of shelter in place. But my 8-month-old son also now has his own subscription through a company called Yummy, which delivers his baby food, and he eats better than we do. I mean, last night he had mulligatawny soup. And so the ability to adapt quickly and change your messaging too in order to fit this time has been a significant change that I've seen. Ads for clean delivery or rapid delivery, but also I've noticed that there's still a desire and I think a need to express how brands and companies are taking care of their employees for safety during this time. So I've seen a lot more personalized messaging when it comes to, thank you for your order, but just so you know, we're taking the utmost cautions here. We put our employees first. Here's how we worked around the schedule to make sure that we're meeting, state and federal mandates for shelter-in-place orders. And on the B2B side, several of my clients, it's interesting because we take something like the LinkedIn connection campaigns that we've been running, and instead of pausing them, we've just altered the messaging to address the fact that we are working through a global crisis head on. And that's seen significant responses, more so than what we were initially running prior to changing that messaging.
Yeah, we have campaigns that are getting double the response today during the crisis. And some of it's obvious, right? We're all sitting in front of computers more often, so there's more engagement. So if you tune your messaging to what's happening right now, you can actually break through in ways that weren't possible before. And some of that's because a lot of companies are going dark, which is absolutely the worst thing that you can do. I mean, we're basically seeing across the board that marketing is working better today than it was 2 months ago.
And you're right. We're talking about an audience that is more captive than before, and tailoring the messaging now. I think it puts our brands and our companies that we're working with in a position where they are, and this is what I was talking about earlier with brand recall, they're working now to create messaging that ensures trustworthiness, but also a sense of comfort in that there is a process in place. We are aware of the conditions that are impacting everyone, but here's what we're personally doing to adapt to that. And we are still going to be able to deliver this product or service to you. And I have seen responses that indicate that not just in the short term, but in the long term, the brands that are responding and are continuing to communicate and put out messaging right now are going to reap the rewards of that long term. And their brand recall for their consumers is going to be considerably better, obviously, than anyone who has gone dark.
Yeah, and this is such a great time to build your network. I mean, I'm hearing from people that I haven't talked to in 2-3 years, because now there's the time for that to happen. So although your marketing effort may not translate directly into increased sales today because of the context that we're in, building those relationships is really going to pay off as we come out the other side. And it's so effective right now. So we all spend a ton of time on Zoom. One of our favorite things now is to complain about what it's like to be on Zoom all day. But yeah, you compare it to what we were doing before. So you'd spend a ton of time on the phone to create a face-to-face meeting. And now you're able to get a much deeper relationship much more quickly because it's via video conference. And so what was just a phone call before, now occurring on a video, you get much further, much faster. So yeah, you can't completely replace what you got out of face-to-face, but your ability to put scale and efficiency in building your network is actually pretty incredible when you move over to this model. And most people are turning their video on now. So we spent our lives on Zoom before this crisis.
Right.
And when I was talking to somebody for the first time via Zoom, roughly half of people would turn on the video. And now it's 90, 95%. I mean, it's getting close to 100%. It's this new norm of it's crazy if you don't turn on your video. What are you doing?
Well, and speaking of new norms and, changes that we've seen that are really rapid in this time, is how working parents are adapting to this. I mean, I don't have him on the video right now, but only because it was an opportunity for him to go on a walk with his dad. But my son AJ has been on most of my meetings, both internally and with clients. And, you know, if there's one thing that the virus is it's a great equalizer, because most of my clients also have their kids, if not on the call, then in the background. And, you know, it's just a fact that we are all in a shelter in place. And so we're all here. The home is not just the place where the family gathers now for meals, but it's where we work and have leisure and family time. So I've seen, um, I've seen a lot of acceptance towards that. And for me as a parent, that's been really great, because it was something that was a challenge before, is still a challenge, but I'm no longer the exception. And it's, it's great to be able to make that connection too, over video chat. What was normally, like you were talking about, just a call where we would hear each other's voices is now so much more personalized. And I think that too ties into the trends that we're seeing in the messaging, where people want to be more familiar and people want to, there's a general sense of wanting to check in on one another. That's changed.
Yeah, and I just don't think there's any going back. We're going to be dealing with this long enough that it's going to create long-term habits. We're learning how to do business without the same level of travel expense. We're all going to want to go back out, but then when you look at the long-term trend of what's going to happen, there's just no way we come back to the same level of participation with face-to-face meetings, events, conferences. And so you think about that for a moment, you think about everything else that's going to change in your business. This is actually the huge opportunity that smaller businesses have. Because frankly, large businesses are just not very good at innovation. It's why we have a market in creating smaller businesses and selling them to larger companies, because they're really dependent on innovation coming from smaller businesses. This is the time to fully leverage it in your business. Figure out how the world is changing, how you can change your business to match that, because putting that effort in today is going to have this tremendous payoff. It's not just about surviving today. Obviously, you've got to be able to deal with that. But if you have the ability to make it through this crisis and see the opportunity in that crisis, this is why so many great companies are born in recession, because you find that opportunity and you run with it. And you're aggressive during a time period when everybody else is pulling back.
Absolutely. I have two great examples of small to mid-sized businesses, one's B2C and one's B2B, that are doing exactly that. And they're really leading the innovation in how they will operate in business going forward. One of them is a local restaurant business that wrote a letter to Grubhub and DoorDash and basically said, you know, the 30% commission that gets taken is too much, and it's not viable and it's not sustainable for us as businesses. And so she is developing her own proprietary platform for delivery that will provide clean delivery, and she can ensure the quality of her food going out, which is something that she couldn't ensure when she was working with third-party enterprises. And she is hoping to work with other local restaurants to bring them into her platform, to provide a more sustainable model for them to take on carry out and contactless, delivery options. Really cool stuff. When on the B2B side, a conversation I had with one of my clients last week was the fact that most of their business came via trade shows. They would usually have one or two salespeople that they would send out to several trade shows each year, kind of staple presence in those arenas. And all of those trade shows have been canceled. And it's like, what do we do now? And it was at that time that we were able to come back and say, well, that's where your investment in word of mouth is really going to pay off, because now we're going to take all of those referrals that you've worked to get, and we're going to leverage our automated platform to grow scale around your messaging. And that was really exciting for them to realize that, there's still a lot of opportunity and a lot of conversations that can be had, and we're going to save them a lot of cost when it comes to travel and conference fees and, the empty calories that go into those networking events. And so I've even seen different emails going out around the digitization of certain conferences, and how certain industries are working really hard to try to adapt to these times, in the VC arena, doing digital due diligence and preparing, startup companies for how to do that without having to meet face to face. So, I mean,
once you figure that out, you're never really going to go back, right? Because it's going to be much more efficient to have that online due diligence process than it is sending the team into the startup, which is how it's often been done in the past. The move for conferences online it's going to be challenging, because a lot of the associations that we work with, their primary revenue driver has been putting on these events. It's going to be tough to move that digital and keep the same level of revenue. And so if your business is dependent on those kind of events, great, you can support those efforts, but you're going to have to create additional ways to drive those sales opportunities. And I see that as a huge opportunity, because there was a kind of wonderfulness to the randomness of who you meet at a trade show or at a conference. But at the same time, it was horribly inefficient and very expensive. And whereas we can go onto LinkedIn and target exactly the right people that we know are the ideal customer, and that we can bring value to them. And as long as you do that in the right way, you don't go in with a sales pitch, you really go in to build a relationship. It's amazingly effective. Yeah, so all these businesses that have long been tied to that method are going to see how much more effective it is to do this digitally. And now you have to. You don't have any choice.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Again, there is going to be a new normal, and in many ways, there are things that we're just simply not going to go back to. And in a lot of ways, I think that's good.
Yeah, and I really, the new normal is just what the normal would have been 10 years out. It's just now it's going to be this year instead of next decade. And so we can already follow the trend lines. We know where we're going to end up. It was all happening before. It's just now been compressed right in the middle of this crisis. So Aaron, this has been a lot of fun to catch up with you. Thanks for making this happen.
Thank you, Bill, and I look forward to talking with you next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the B2B Word of Mouth Marketing Podcast. Join us each Monday for new episodes, and visit boomtime.com to listen to prior episodes and check out episode notes. Have a marketing question you want answered? Email us at podcast@boomtime.com or tweet us at boomtime_online, and we'll answer your questions on air.